There she is. Well, welcome everyone. We're glad to have you here for our final meeting. We have a special topic today and several guests who are going to share their experiences from their one-room schoolhouses today. And we're going to really be digging into monitoring and tracking progress and all the ways that that can happen in very complex settings. So we're glad to have so many people joining us today, both to speak and to share in the chat. And hopefully we'll have some time for discussion later where you can share what's going well for your programs. So first, to just tell you who is who, I'm Patsy. I will be helping behind the scenes here mostly, and I direct Atlas. We're housed at Hamline University in St. Paul, and you already heard from Astra. Do you want to say more about who you are?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Astrid Leiden. I'm with the State Adult Education Team at the Department of Education, and I coordinate professional development for Minnesota Adult Education. I'm excited to be here with you all.
Thanks, Astrid. And then we have several guests, and we have two teachers from Project for Pride in Living and two from Detroit Lakes, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Genna?
Hi, everybody. My name is Genna Hart. I am the lead teacher in the Diploma Connect program at Project for Pride in Living.
Thank you. Among many other hats Genna has worn for us here at Atlas, so grateful for your yes today. Thank you. And Denise?
Hi, I'm Denise Goldman. I am the site director over at PPL's Reengagement Center, which includes our Diploma Connect program.
Thank you. And then joining us from the northern part of the state, I'll go to Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Hellekson, and I'm the lead instructor or the program coordinator for Lakes Area Adult Education in Detroit Lakes.
Thank you. And Staci.
Hi, I'm Staci. I'm our program assistant extraordinaire apparently here in Detroit Lakes.
Excellent. Yes, you are. We're glad to have all of you here today. Thank you. So Astrid's going to help us understand why we're landing on this particular topic.
Yeah, so for this final meeting, we took some of the feedback from the previous meetings and thought about some of the challenges that are inherently present in the one-room schoolhouse and landed on this topic of monitoring student work and tracking progress as an area for sharing. We know that in your one-room schoolhouse context, it can be a challenge when you're working with individual students who may be going and coming at different times, who may have different goals, be working in different curriculum resources to keep track of it all. It's a lot to juggle. And we wanted to take some time to hear from a couple of different programs about some of the processes and tools and procedures that they use to make sure that they are adequately monitoring what's happening with each student so that multiple staff who might be working with the same student have ways to communicate with each other, and so that they can track their students' progress towards whatever goals they may be working toward. So we're really excited to hear from two different programs, both one-room schoolhouses, but pretty different contexts. So we think it'll provide a range of ideas for you all as you think about your own contexts and what you might use in your own settings.
Great, thank you. So we'll start. We've got a bunch of people in the chat, but I hope you can find your chat box and find your keyboard, because we'll start with you and then we'll move to our presenters. But tell us, what do you think? What are some challenges around keeping track of students' goals and progress in your one-room schoolhouse setting? So go ahead and find your chat box. We're curious if they match some of the struggles that we've heard from our presenters, if there's something quite different. And my guess is there's going to be some overlap, but let's find out. So what do you think about keeping track of progress in your setting? How do you know when they're coming in and out all the time? Just give you a moment to let us know. Thanks, Elizabeth. For sure, unpredictable attendance is tricky. Yeah, staying in communication between teachers when you work alternate days, absolutely. Anything else jump to mind? Thanks, Chris. Student persistence and not having options for students like in the class framework. And Carol writes, small town in southern Minnesota, the only person in the district, so all on her own. Well, thank you for being here, Carol. You're not alone today, so we're glad to be with you. But we certainly understand what a challenging setting that can be. And Denise saying lots of multiple subjects and needing teachers able to teach all the things, right? Time to do it while providing good quality instruction. Nathan agrees about the unpredictability of attendance. Yeah, I'm just reading your comment, Laura. Yeah, lots of reporting and such to handle while you're trying to do the instruction at the same time. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, not knowing if you'll have a house, like a whole room full of students or no one at all, right? And having to prepare for all the things. Well, thank you. I imagine that's going to resonate with some of our presenters here. So we'll move along here. And first, I'm going to invite Denise and Genna to talk a little bit about their context, and then they'll say more about how they're managing this on their end. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi everyone. Again, I'm Denise. So first we just wanted to explain what Project for Pride in Living is. So we are a community-based organization. So I know a lot of you all are part of your districts, so part of a school system, and we are kind of on our own. So we're part of the Minneapolis Consortium, but we're part of a nonprofit called Project for Pride in Living that focuses on housing and career readiness. So their education department is in the career readiness section. Diploma Connect started about 3 years ago, almost 2.5. And it was really created to bridge the gap between alternative high schools, which we have 2 alternative high schools in Minneapolis that PPL also runs, and then our career pathways programming. So we were noticing that in order to get into the career pathways program, you need a high school diploma. However, you age out of high school at 21. So this was created to bridge that gap a little bit. We've had 35 graduates to date, which is really exciting. We focus on the actual diploma as opposed to focusing on the GED. Students that we serve are have to be over the age of 19. Mostly, I would say that they're between 19 and 35. We try to take people who have 2 to 3 years of high school credits. There should be parentheses there on the side, so sorry about that, but for around 1 year left, or that they've passed 2 or 3 GED tests. So if you're familiar with the adult diploma, you know that we can take credits from high school and we can take past GED tests, and we can combine those things together. And then the way that we run our program is we fill in the rest of those missing pieces. So we can go to, there we go. Jen, I think this is you.
Yes. So a little bit about our program structure. We are open year round. We have rolling enrollments and exits. So students can reach out and enroll at any time. We don't have specific start dates like semesters or quarters. We do offer graduations 2 to 3 times a year, kind of based on student numbers. And we try to get as many students involved in those graduations as we can. As we know, it's very important to celebrate these huge wins for our students as they're graduating with their diplomas. We are very much, like you guys all are, participant focused. We're trying to remove as many barriers as possible, whether that's transportation, attendance, even housing, that type of thing, which leads into the fact that we do have some financial supports available to our students. We do have some policies around that in order to give financial supports to our participants, but we have been able to provide rental support and car repair support. We also have a great network through Project for Pride in Living with our donations and volunteer organization section. And we're able to get donations from the community of hygiene supplies, coats, some of those basic needs that our students need in order to be able to learn, we're able to obtain through the nonprofit, which has been really awesome. And as much as we love to talk about all of the pluses that our programs have, we do have some cons as well. You'll see that in the on the right-hand section of our slide here. As we all know, tracking student hours and course completion can be a bear, especially if you have participants and students that come and go. One thing we do in our program is we use our participant logs, which is a Microsoft or a Google form. We're a small program. We have 2 teachers and a site director. So it's very important that the teachers are tracking our student hours, whether our students are in person or completing our TVM hours online away from PPL. And then every week, or we try to every week, upload those hours into SID so we can really truly track how many hours our students are completing and what they're completing. Time consuming weekly communication. So every week we send out an email to all of our participants just saying, hey, checking in, how are you doing? But as we know, our students don't always communicate on a regular basis. So we really try to reach out to our students weekly via text, email, phone, whatever way we can to try to keep our students engaged and communicating with us. Even if it's them telling us they're not able to come in or complete work, that's totally fine. We just want to be able to hear from them. And as you know, tracking down students and trying to keep in communication with them can be very time consuming. Grading and assigning work. Right now, all of our curriculum is TVM based. Our students can complete it at PPL or, like I said, online anywhere. So really keeping on top of what students are completing and when and where can be really tricky, especially if they're not completing full units at one time. So really making sure that we're staying on top of student grading so students know what they're doing and we're able to provide feedback to them. Since we do focus mostly on the adult diploma, creating and putting together the portfolios to submit to the state can be tricky at times. Gathering all of the student information, creating the cover sheets, and putting together a full and complete portfolio to submit to the state is time consuming in a way to make sure we've got everything, but then also waiting to hear back from the state as far as portfolio completion and diploma, and our students obtaining their diploma can be kind of an antsy part of the process. And then also the way we have set up our program, we know it can be very expensive to do, especially with how our program is set up as far as drop-in hours and everything, which we'll talk about a little bit more on the next slide. So how we have our program set up, we tried to make it as flexible as possible for our students. So you can see we have a picture of our classroom on the screen there. We're very proud of our classroom. We love it. And one of the reasons that we wanted to highlight it is that we tried to set it up so it feels much more like a college classroom. So when students come in, they don't feel like they're in your typical high school class. It can feel more like a college environment to them. We don't have specific class times or dates. So we don't have like social studies that meets every day at 1 o'clock. We have student drop-in hours and our students can come in 10 to 4 every day, Monday through Thursday. We don't have any required attendance policies. And then we really try to be super flexible around work and kids' schedules, which we know can be a positive and a negative as well. It does mean that the teachers are sometimes working after your typical school hours, helping our students to get through their coursework, because some of our students are working at, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night on their coursework. Because we don't have those required attendance pieces or your typical class times or hours, it can feel that there is sometimes a lack of community. Sometimes we have 1 student working in our classroom, sometimes we have 6, but even if we have 6 students working in the class, they're all working on different things at different times. So we do lose that sense of community a little bit. And then a big one for us is the lack of regular attendance and work completion. So we really try to with the communication piece, with the text, the phone calls, the emails, we really try to keep in communication with our students. But as we know, life happens, and sometimes our students step away for a week, sometimes they step away for longer than that. And we really try to be as available to them as possible. But it does make their work completion slower in that respect. And I did see the communication piece in the chat a little bit earlier. And then students coming and going too is something I've seen that a lot of programs do struggle with. And then I do see a question in the chat about, are we both in the classroom every day? So I'm a teacher in our program. We have another teacher, and then Denise is our site director. Both teachers are in the classroom pretty much all day, every day, and available to help. And Denise is there too as well, but sometimes she has to step away for meetings. All right, and I think this one is Denise.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Genna. So yeah, moving on to kind of how we work with our individual curriculum, because everybody's coming in with different needs and we don't have actual classes, it can get kind of crazy. So we make all of our curriculum available online. So when people come in, we figure out which classes they still need, and then they can access that curriculum online anytime. We're in the classroom every day because they will just drop in for any help that they need. So we let them know that they can work in the classroom, or they can work at home. They can do a combination. So if they need a quiet place to work, we're there and we've got the classroom available, but they don't have to be there. So they only complete what they need, which is nice, instead of being in a, in an English class, because it's part of the program, like in a GED program, for example, that might be teaching English and social studies all together as humanities. If they only need geography, they only need geography. Then they can work at their own pace. And this is a really big one because people are not left behind. So as we know, our students all have complicated lives, and as we all do, and their schedules change. So we always tell them, if somebody gets sick in your household and you need to take a few weeks off, that's completely fine, because you won't be left behind. You can just pick up where you left off. So the online really helps with that. On the side of things that make things a little difficult, right? Every class has to be available every day for a student. So this isn't so bad anymore. When we were first starting, though, and we had to build every class, we were very often, a day ahead of a student, where we were just like, oh my God, they're moving too fast. So that was really hard. Them working at their own pace is a positive and a negative. Sometimes I think we have one student that he's been in there maybe a couple of years and hasn't got through the class, even one class yet. So, but he keeps popping in. And so we're just going at his pace. And then we all need to be familiar enough with each class so that whoever is in the building when the student comes in, we can help them. So, we hired another teacher to focus mostly on math, and they're ending up doing a lot of writing. We all can jump in and work with them because it's more of a tutoring kind of session. So we all can jump in at any point and help them out. And there's only 3 of us. So, and we're always there, the 3 of us. So, vacation, PTO, whatever, but there's, because we're always there, it's easy for us to communicate with each other. As opposed to, I think some programs have a little bit harder process doing that because they don't necessarily overlap in person, right? One person might come Tuesday, Thursday, the other person comes Monday, Wednesday. So we can go to the next slide, and we just put in here an example of, you can't see it very well, it looks like, but that's okay. There's a link to it as well. But this just gives you an example of one of the ways that we track what we do. So when somebody comes in, we create a sheet like this so that they can see what they have already done and what they still need to do. So, and then we put in there how it's being accomplished. So for example, if it's a transcript, it gets grayed out. If it is a GED, it gets grayed out. And then we just track this so that they know, but also so that we know. The classes in red are the things that they still need to complete to get their diploma done. If we move it into green, and we'll put a note in there that they were enrolled in the class. When they finish the class, it turns another color. I really like my color coding. Genna will tell you spreadsheets and color coding. So yeah, so that's just one of the ways that we keep track. Genna had mentioned participant logs, and I meant to put in a sample of that as well. But one of the things that I think has really helped us with that, with tracking time, because they do come in so individually, and so if they're there for 1 hour on any random day, we have developed a system, and also for the TVM tracking, we've developed a system of it's just a Google form, and every day Genna and I and the other teacher, we all have we have 4 to 4:30 blocked off on our calendars, and that's when we do participant logs and case notes. Because we have external funding, we have to do case notes every time we have contact with a student. So we block that time off. And then every week, I take all those participant logs, which list the hours that a person worked on something, and I move those hours into SID at the end of the week. So we do that just one time, once a week. I think that's about it. I'm not very good at reading while I'm talking, and so I get distracted, but I can see that there's questions in there, but I think we're kind of opening it up for questions now too. So
Yeah, I can help find some of those for you. So you're getting kudos for doing so much around TVM at your site. So yay for that. And then also, would you be able to share a sample TVM lesson with a comment? What
sure.
else did I miss, Astrid?
That's
Oh,
it. The other one, there was a question about what LMS they use for their online work, and that was answered in the chat that you're doing Google Classroom, but moving over to D2L.
Yep. Yeah, and we've noticed that one of the big reasons that we're moving over to, well, there's two main reasons that we're moving over. One is that MnSCU uses D2L Brightspace system, and so we thought that it was a good idea to have that experience for our students. And then also it's way more interactive. We have to pay for it, so that's a bigger issue. But our alternative high schools are starting to use it too. And so it's another perk of being part of the nonprofit as well. We get lots of things that are not perks, but that is one of them. Not perks meaning that we don't have some of the district capabilities. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Other questions for Project for Pride in Living? I wonder if there's anyone else doing a lot of TVM work on here. It might be interesting to see if other people are really
Yeah, I mean,
leveraging that.
we found TVM to be a lifesaver, really, because it helps us with tracking time. It helps us to be sure that we do have a lesson for every single piece out there, because it's so different than classroom teaching, where, you might be hitting a standard just because you're there and talking about things. But when it's all online, we have to be pretty careful that whatever the person needs is there at the moment they need it. So it's been really great for that.
Sounds like it has that nimble quality. Yeah, you did get a question in the chat. Are you only ADP focused?
We're primarily ADP focused. So we started off only, and I was pretty rigid about it. And then we realized that that was not really fair. So what we found is that the way that we kind of put it is that we focus on ADP, and if somebody is coming in only for GED and they have their whole GED to do, we tend to refer them out just because we don't teach to that test. And so they're going to do a lot better and go a lot faster with, if they want to get a GED, going to a program that focuses on GED. And we feel like there's enough of those to really service. We're in Minneapolis. So there really is enough of that, we think, in the Twin Cities, and we have enough partners for that. We will sometimes, though, have somebody come in with 3 GED tests passed, and they need their math, and they can't get through that test. And so we'll put them in the ADP program. And we have had a student or two who starts the math courses, gets their confidence built up, realizes that the stakes aren't quite as high on that math test as they were when it was all or nothing. So they know that if they don't pass that math test this time, they have the adult diploma option. And sometimes just taking that stress away lets them pass that GED test, that last GED math test. So we will definitely work with people GED focused. I think we've had 3 GED graduates. But coming out of public schools, I'm a strong believer that there are that when we try and be all things to all people, it's really hard. So I feel for some of you that are in smaller communities, right? And you do have to be absolutely everything to everyone. I know it makes it really difficult.
Absolutely. It's nice to be able to focus. All right, anything else for Genna and Denise? Of course, we'll have some time later as well. If you think of other things to ask them, we will absolutely make time for that. All right, well, we will go ahead and switch gears to Lakes area. Staci and Jen.
All right. So, our consortium, we have 12 sites within 10 school districts. There's quite a large geographical area between our sites. I looked it up this morning, and one site is about 46 miles away just from this one. So there's quite a bit of driving from site to site for some of our teachers. 2 of our sites, and you can see in our picture here, are local businesses. That's at the dairy farm that our teacher Genna teaches at on Tuesday nights. All of our sites do offer GED and adult diploma, English language learners. We do basic skills and citizenship prep and AccuPlacer prep for students in college. And then we also do offer Serve Safe Food Protection Manager certification and classes through ROC. Next slide. Some of the challenges of tracking progress at all of our sites are the one-room schoolhouse model. So some of our sites do have 2 to 3 instructors, and keeping everybody informed when you're not there on the same day is really challenging sometimes. All of our students have different needs. Our student base has been changing a lot over the last few years, especially. So we're constantly adjusting our approach to those needs. We're working really hard to put systems in place to help us stay organized and on track. We might have some students who are working in math, and then other students who are working on social studies all at the same time. We'll have English language learners. So there's 4 students can feel really busy really quickly. So, and next slide. All of our new students have an orientation checklist, and I do have a sample of that on the next slide, but until that's done, their files are going to stay in a separate cabinet to help remind us what they need to do to help us stay on track as well. That way we don't miss things, and we're making sure we're getting all of their assessments done and getting a plan done and making sure that they've got a good start. And next slide. So here is a sample of our orientation checklist, and that's a picture of one of our classrooms. I think that's in Twin Valley, Norman County East, where Genna also teaches as well. So we're making sure that we're getting all of our paperwork done. If the student needs an age waiver, they're getting all of their TABE testing done, and our initial North Star digital literacy skills to make sure that they have the computer skills to take the GED test if that's the route they're going. And next slide.
All right, so one of the things we realized this year is that oftentimes with different teachers who are coming in and out, you know, somebody maybe teaches 1 day a week, somebody maybe teaches 2 days a week, or maybe we're filling in at some of the sites, is that sometimes our focus can get kind of thinned because students want to work on everything at once. And so we weren't really able to make a lot of progress trying to work on multiple subjects at one time. So this year we've tried to focus in on saying students can choose 1 to 2 subjects to focus on at any one time. And once they pass one, they can add it in. Or if they get tired of one, they can set it aside and start to make progress somewhere else. But at any time, any student who walks in is probably working on math and or social studies and or science, right? And then we noticed too that all of us, we have a ton of different curricula to choose, a ton of different textbooks, I'm sorry, to choose from. And so, but we tend to go to those tried and true ones, our favorites that seem to work with the majority of our students. Say, for us, we love Number Power 2 for learning fractions, or we really like Common Core Achieve for social studies. So what we did was we created these textbook checklists that we have in the student working folder, so that anytime a student walks in and you're busy, you grab that working folder, you open it up, and if you look at the next page, we broke down the book into so this is Number Power 2. So we broke down the book into all the different sections of Number Power 2. And then every time we give them the next section or they work on the next section, we keep track of it. Sometimes they want to take it home as homework because they have technology fatigue and they just want the paper. Sometimes they only want to work on it here. But either way, any teacher who picks up that working file at any time knows what lesson they're on, when they gave it, whether it's been complete. And then also that gives the student ownership of seeing this is how much work you're going to do in this book to achieve these skills. So it also lets them see their progress on a real physical basis, which they seem to enjoy. So the next page. The other thing we do to try and stay organized between all of our different sites and all of our teachers who, you know, we all kind of are running around is we use SID log notes for all of our student records. All but I think one of our sites is using SID log notes. And we do that in 2 ways. One is that every time we have a student password, whether it's North Star Digital Literacy, My GED, any of their distance learning platforms, whatever it is, we throw it under the notice log, which I'll show you in a second. And then for our day-to-day logs, we mark as private. So you guys at another site, if you look up our student, you couldn't see it, but any of the teachers in our consortium can go ahead and look. And on private, we started using this one simple format for all of our logs. We talk about what we did today, if there's homework, what homework we gave, and then if there's something specific they need to do next, we say next. So anybody coming in can also easily read through that log note and understand what is happening with the student. So if you want to see the next page. This is our SID notes. I just wanted to show you the front page, what it looks like when you use Notice to show all of the logins and the passwords that you need to save for that student. It's in that yellow banner kind of in the middle of the page, and you can see it says NDL, and then it's their login and then their password. The only bad thing about using the Notice is that you can't layer them down. It's always going to go just across, and you can only show 3 at one time. So what we do is we always go back to that one notice and we put all the passwords on the one, because if you were to do 5 or 6, they're not going to show up on that first summary page. That's the only downside to using it. If you go to the next page, oops, sorry, they're moved around. It should go to page, can you go to slide 21?
Yeah, sorry. Maybe I clicked
That's
the wrong
okay.
way here. Okay.
There you go.
Oh,
Perfect.
sorry about
All
that.
right. That's okay. So this is what the log notes look like in SID. This is just a sample for you guys. You can see this shows that on the very bottom, August 21st, today, new student intake, started orientation checklist, completed TABE locator. Next, do your TABE testing. And then I have my notice in there. This is the second log up from the bottom where I've listed what those passwords would be. And then up from there, I just gave you a sample of what our day-to-day logs might look like. So today, completed TABE, continue orientation checklist, right? And then what you'll see a lot of times is in that next section, we might say, today completed homework from number power 2, sections F1, 2, and 3, started Common Core Achieve, gave the homework on Essential Ed, but maybe the next might say TABE test right away, post-test ready, or something like that. And that's what we're using those log notes for. Next one. So when we decided to do this one room schoolhouse, we thought, what are our useful like day-to-day things that we're using that may be useful to others? So first we thought of the orientation checklist and the workbook checklist, and then SID. And the last thing we thought of is how are we keeping track of our adult diplomas? So what we do is we have 2 of us who do the transcript evaluations, and after we do, and they're uploaded to SID, we create a to-do list of everything that's left. And then we give a copy. So a copy is in their file online, but we also put a copy in that student work folder. So at any time they can look at it, they can take a copy with them if they want, but they again are having that ownership of what's left. So they can pick and choose as they go through their subjects. Maybe they want to do geography and then jump to digital literacy. They can see what their total package is, and then they can decide what it is they're going to do. So on the next page, I just have 2 examples of what we've done for these very simple student checklists. They're very straightforward, right? You just have your 5 to 5 areas and what's left. These are both actual student ones where I just took the names off, what was left for each of them, and then how we framed it. It's good for the teachers too, because maybe not all of our teachers are as comfortable with adult diploma as others. Maybe they don't do it as often. And then what we'll do oftentimes is, for example, the one on the left, yesterday, that teacher and I, we sat down together and we really talked through what each of those things meant and did. And then she printed out extra materials to go along with it. And now she is 100% ready to finish that up and get this student graduated by May. So I think next page. Staci, is this one you? Oh, Staci's coughing a little, so. Last thing is how we're checking that progress. How are we making sure they're moving forward? And we've put a new emphasis on getting that post-testing in and using diagnostics to make sure we're catching and measuring that growth. We have a 3-month check-in that was on that orientation checklist that we put in our calendar as a notice also for the students, so we can go back and revisit and make sure we're making the progress that we were hoping for, or tweak things at that time. And the other thing we're doing right now that's a little bit different than prior years is we have a grant that allowed us to buy a good chunk of GED ready tests. So as they're getting through and they've done that time and we feel like they're ready to take the practice GED exam, we are really focusing on those that are getting close to passing and using that score report on the GED readies to help identify those weak areas so we can hone in on their weaknesses and help get them through to their next goal. So we're always trying new things, seeing what's working, on how to track progress and how to help the students move forward. So that's it for us.
Thank you so much. Astrid had a question for you. Do you want to say that?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about just logistically, how do you build the log notes into your workflow? Are you doing that as you're working with the student right after they leave at the end of the day? How do you make sure that that actually happens?
Well, like PPL said, you know, it's very, very random how our days go. There might be a day when we have 14 students in the classroom, then there's a day where we have 1 student in the classroom, right? So it very much depends on if we get a break in between. But what we have is we have a when we have students pull that working file out, we have a rack by the teacher desk where we put all of the working files, so we remember who all was there, as well as a sign-in sheet, and then, you know, notes. So we can leave everything in those working files right there. And if we don't get a chance to do the notes, we do them at the end of the day. But if we get a break in between, then we're trying to take care of them as we go. But we have right by the computer, we have just a little hit list of everything we do every time a student walks in. You know, grab their working file, check the SID notes, look for notices. So we all remember, you know, check, do they have an orientation checklist? Make sure you're completing that first so that we all are on the same page and we all remember, oh, I've got to do these things. Oh, that's where that is.
I love the systems that you have in place and the fact that you have that consistent structure in SID, and then you've got the reminder by your desk, and that there's the paper backup for getting the notes in because you've got the files right there.
Yeah, that visual, when that
Yep.
when that rack is empty, then you know you're done. I saw a note from Denise saying lots of lists. You know, it felt like a lot when we were creating this, but we all felt at the beginning of this year, like, are we on a path where if a student walks in, we know how to get them from new student to graduation? And it was just a collaborative effort, all of us, like, you know, how do we, and it's really taken a lot of the stress off of on a busy day, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of clarity for you all as staff and for the students, like you were saying, to be able to see, for example, that checklist for one of your curricular resources, how much they need to complete in order to meet that unit.
What other questions for Jen and Staci? Denise, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Jen, it made me laugh a little bit when you said, and we have it over here, and we have it over here, and we have it over here. 'Cause
Right.
when we hired our new teacher, we just went through, they weren't understanding all the different places that we need something tracked. And so I'm like, no, I need you to put the check mark on the whiteboard. And I also need you to do the case note. And I also need you to do the participant log, because it just like, there's a lot of different ways for this to not get tracked. Right. And so if you miss one day, and it's so much communication between
really-
the three of us, and there's only three of us. So, you know, and for a long time, Birdie just started 3 months ago. So for a long time, it was just the two of us. So the bigger you get, right? And the more students you have and the more staff you have, you kind of need those redundancy pieces in case you miss one.
It's crazy. When we first started this year, when we started implementing more of this, I think we all felt a little overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, we have to do this and this and this, and here's another thing. But as we've gotten more comfortable, it's alleviated the stress because we all feel like we're moving towards the same goal more. And we have a lot of work to do yet. I mean, we are far from where we need to be, but it's definitely felt like we've taken control of some aspects where we felt a little weak before.
Thank you so much. What other questions do people have? Yeah, Danielle agrees about the communication imperative. I guess one thing I'm curious, it sounds like many of those systems are in place for teachers to communicate with each other. Anything you'd add about how you communicate progress with two students themselves, or are they following all the same protocols that you are and are looking at the whiteboard and such? How does it work in your programs?
You know, for us, because we're so small, each teacher has a class, right? So no matter what the student is doing, the teacher of that particular class is communicating. I'll let Jenna talk more about how she actually communicates. I will say that on our whiteboard, which is probably my favorite thing, is to go put check marks next to students' names on the whiteboard, that they either did work or they communicated with us that week. They love to notice it, and they come in and they're like, oh, there's my name. Look, all those check marks. So it's just kind of a fun thing. So try
Yeah,
and
there's a
communicate that way too.
visual reinforcement. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Jenna,
Jenna, do you want to talk a little bit about how you communicate directly about a class?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It leads into trying to communicate with our students as many different ways as possible. Email, text, sending messages directly through our LMS system. One of my favorite things though is when a student does finish a class, we try to make a big deal of it. And then we update their grad tracker, sometimes right in front of them because they're like, oh, what's next? So that's a really great opportunity for us to pull up all of that paperwork and be like, all right, you just completed this. This is what we're going to do. This is what you're going to do next, and then get them enrolled into the next class. So it's very much a one-to-one direct communication piece. Like I won't ever enroll a student in a class without them knowing or being like, hey, you finished this. So again, that communication piece of you're done with this. This is next, this is coming up. That's been a big piece for us.
yeah, and it sounds like that would be really motivating to see, oh, I am moving along that trajectory, even if it's in fits and starts. Astrid, anything in the chat that you wanted to lift up? I'm just trying to read what Laura's here.
Yeah.
And then if there are additional questions for any of our presenters before we
Yes.
go into a larger discussion, that
Genna,
would be a
good
good
time.
time. Otherwise, we are going to do a little large group sharing as well, and maybe more questions will emerge from there. Astrid, you want to tell us what we're up to here?
So at this point, we want to turn the question back to all of you to hear a little bit more about what tools or strategies you're using in your context to track student work and progress. So we are going to go to the Padlet that we've been using to document ideas being shared in the community of practice. And you could either create a post on the Padlet to share links to resources you're using. We can also, Patsy and I can also take some notes if you'd like to just unmute and share. But we'd love to hear from everyone, if possible, just a little bit about what processes, what tools, what strategies are you using in your context?
So I dropped that Padlet link. If anyone is unfamiliar with Padlet, there's a little, I don't know what to call it, little circle thingy at the bottom, on the bottom right. And you click on that, and then this emerges, and you can write a subject, and then it'll offer you the option to publish, and then that'll show up for everybody.
You can also just click on the plus sign right below the question.
Yeah, or just right here.
Yeah. But really, we'd love to hear from you all. So please raise your hand, unmute. What's working? If you're struggling with a particular aspect of tracking student work or progress and want to put a question out to the group, we can talk about that as well. Crowdsource a little bit. Elizabeth, I'm wondering if I might call on you. I know you're not currently in the classroom, but you managed a lot of different students and volunteers in a one-room schoolhouse previously. Any other systems that you found to be helpful that might benefit others?
I would definitely lean into your LMS or any other online tracking systems like the SID logs. I got to the point where I had to have an LMS. It was way too much to try to keep track of 50 different students doing 50 different paper packets. So I needed to put things online just so everything would be accessible in one place.
That makes sense. I know we have a couple of folks from West ABE on. Any systems that you all have in place that you might share with the group? What's working for you, or what challenges are you grappling with?
I am in the mentorship program, and I am working on creating a class website for my students, hoping to launch that in the fall. So I'm excited about that.
That's excellent. So is that going to be sort of a one-stop place for students to go to find what they need in terms of your classwork?
Yes. So I'm hoping to have the community resources, the mental health ones. I'm also hoping to have our distance learning platforms, advertise our class. Right now, I'm going through a ridiculous amount of business cards, which I'm grateful for when new students bring them in. They're obviously sharing them, but it's expensive on my pocketbook. So I'm just hoping that maybe this will work a little bit better. So we'll see.
Great. We can't wait to see that, Danielle. Laura, are you able to unmute and talk a little bit about the daily logs you use in the student folders?
Sorry, I had to find how to get off the one screen to get to this button. Yeah, what it is an Excel sheet for each subject area. That I have copied, and it has lines, you know, a line sheet, and they write down every day what they do. For example, they work on language, they put down what book they used, what page number they're on. Then when they're done with it, either they'll put down, okay, I finished this and got 50 out of 100 of the questions, or what it happens to be. Or I'll say, hey, I need you to work on taking the Kaplan pre-test. So I can put notes on there. So there's one sheet for each subject, and they staple them together, and they keep them in their student file. And so they use that every day. So either they can write in it, or I write it at the end of the day what they did.
Excellent. Yeah, and I love that you've got the students taking some ownership on documenting.
And it
what
used to
they've
be
been
color
working on.
coded, but we don't have all the color sheets anymore, so it's just all same color page. But just
Okay.
highlight, this is for reading, this is math, this is social science. I try to keep them in an order, so that way it's easy for me to flip to the right page and put the notes on the right page.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
We also had a comment, I don't know who the secretive llama is, but using Burlington curriculum. If
Mhm.
the llama would like to reveal themselves and say more, we'd love that. And then also, Elizabeth, do you want to come on and say more about the Google Forms that you use?
Oh,
And
sure.
then Denise does that too.
Yeah, someone else posted about Microsoft. So whatever platform is available to you, I always used Google because it was free, but you can just create, whatever type of form makes sense. I would have something along the lines of like, just checking in, like, what did you work on this week? What went well? What do you want to set as a goal for next week? I think I had a question about like, what did you learn? And it could either be something academic content related or something like, I learned I shouldn't try to study on the bus because I'm too distracted or whatever. Um, so just as a way of touching base with people, since attendance can be so unpredictable, at least they know to expect every Thursday, I'm gonna get my message with this link to fill out a form, and if I don't do it, my teacher's gonna check in on me.
Great. I love that strategy.
I really like that Elizabeth mentioned using the Google form as a student check-in. I'm the serious otter on the on the Padlet right there, and I noticed Denise and I both said, shockingly, very similar things about using Google Forms to track hours and student work completion. But I really like the idea of also using Google Forms to do more of a student check-in. I think I might steal that.
Thank you. And then we had someone in West, let's see, talking points for student communication. Someone want to say more about that?
Danielle was really excited when she learned about this at our last meeting. But it's basically it can be an app, but those similar apps like Reminds and WhatsApp, where you can communicate with students and translate in multiple languages. With talking points, what I really like about it is that the student don't have to download an actual app. It's just use their text message system. So get a text just like regular text messages. I mean, eventually they're gonna get a text where please download the app to blah blah blah. But I usually to tell my student that they can just ignore that message and continue to use it. But I can send a message in English, set up in the system where to set their language of choice of the student language of choice, and it automatically translates. And then when the student texts back to me in their language, it will come to me in English. And you can do photos, you can attach YouTube links. So it's just like a text message that you would get, and you have a really random number that talking points assigned to you.
So you're not
I just look-
reviewing, yeah.
Is that
makes sense.
something you have access to through your district, Julia?
You know, it's free. I've
Okay.
used this for ever.
Oh, nice.
Since I was in
Oh.
K-12 too. And so it's really easy to use. I can text messages, send out a class announcement from my laptop. So you don't, and you can download the app on your phone and use it through the app on your phone. But yeah, I like to freeze
Oh.
messages as well. That's another feature that I love. Yeah. So
That sounds really useful.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
sharing. Has anyone else tried that? That's the first time I've heard about that tool.
Yeah, I run into several programs using WhatsApp or Remind, but
Remind,
not
yeah.
something points.
Any other tools or strategies that people want to share? Thanks everybody for everything that's been shared so far. Lots of great ideas. Let's check in one more time, see if there's anything else. Hey,
Nothing more, do you?
I don't see anything else. But again, this Padlet will stay up, so you can go back and visit it after the webinar. Lots of great resources that were shared in previous community practice meetings as well.
Yeah, I like that we kept building on the one. So something to know is that this is our last community practice meeting for this particular grant year. We'll of course continue to gather people as makes sense. We would like to hear from you about what topic might bubble up that we can focus on in the next few weeks or months here. So we had Elizabeth helped us with a session around using AI, and now of course talking about monitoring and tracking progress. What's another topic that comes to mind? We'd love to hear from you in the chat that if there were a presentation on that, you would come. What would that topic be?
Or if there's a topic that you would like to share about.
Yes, that would be fine too.
Yes, we are always looking to showcase new voices, new perspectives, different programs from around the state. So if you have something that's been working that you think other one-room school practitioners might enjoy talking about, we would love to hear it. Oh, Laura, do you want to come on and say anything about Summer Institute proposals?
Just so
I'll put a link to the proposals in the chat.
Yeah, we just need people for proposals or any ideas of something that you might be interested in, so we can reach out to others. It's been a struggle just because everyone is just kind of, I think, exhausted in so many different ways, even more so than the previous years. So any ideas for anybody, just let us know, please.
Thank you. And then a good idea from Jen in the chat about more TVMs, so the teacher verification model, textbooks, and other specific resources that people really go back to over and again.
Yep, thank you. And just to note, I put this in the chat, but Genna's going to she needs to pull a TVM lesson out of her LMS, but we'll send that out as part of the follow-up email. So you can see an example of one of the lessons they're using.
And then we'd love to have people continue sharing on the Mighty Networks. This is like a kind of like a social professional networking space that you can all join and share ideas. Even those very things that you were discussing in the chat are easily shared there. We'll probably share out the resources from today on there as well. And then it sounds like, Danielle, you might be interested in visiting other one-room schoolhouses. Is that what you're suggesting? Yeah, that would be fascinating. I agree. Welcome. Yeah, I always learn a lot. This is not a context I have taught in, so when I have visited, I've always been blown away at the skill involved with managing so much. Well, keep putting any other ideas you have here. And then just a heads up, we have a couple of upcoming things. Astrid's going to put the announcement stock in the chat. The big thing to know is that there is a virtual conference on April 11th. So that's a Friday, a few weeks from now. And it's an all-day virtual conference. So PD in your PJs, we call it. So you can spend time at home with your coffee learning all day. So there's lots of good stuff. And we have a couple of keynote speakers who are teaming up in the morning to talk about learning challenges, learning disabilities, universal design for learning. And they're joining us from kind of similar jobs to what Astrid and I have, but for the state of Illinois. And that happens to be their wheelhouse. So they'll be sharing about UDL and then a variety of other sessions, 16 different things to choose from throughout the day. Lots of good things. So please plan to join us. Other announcements you want to lift up, Astrid?
No, I think that's the big one for now. And looking ahead to Summer Institute.
And if you're in the southern part of the state, we'll be in town in Mankato on May
Yes.
2nd. Or if you want to go to Mankato, join us. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's welcome.
It's always a good one. Well, at this point, I'll just invite all of our panelists back on camera for a moment so we can give them a little round of applause and high fives. Yay, good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
I
Yeah,
really appreciate
really
your
helpful.
work. Trying to find my reaction button, but I'm too slow. Oh well. Okay. Thank you so much for being part of this. We really appreciate all that you shared. We'll hang out for a minute, but otherwise you'll get a follow-up email and then you'll be able to get the resources that were shared today, as well as an evaluation that allows you to download your CEU. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.